All right, guys. So for anybody listening out there, we've got a special update from Charles Hoskinson, founder of IOHK and also leading the Growth and Deep team, who's focusing on this new Scala client for ETC, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff for ETC. A lot of work's going on. So we've got a bunch of updates from Charles. Charles, take it away.
Hey, Carlo, thanks for having me on. I swore I'd never be on Let's Talk ETC, but I felt why not? It was kind of a spur of the moment thing. Anyway, big long time listener, first time on the show. Growth and Deek it has been kind of moving along swimmingly. So I think it was about 8 months or 9 months ago when I was on Taizen's show, I said we'll be hiring a development team to go and build a client. Which was kind of a crazy idea. And we originally said, we'll hire like 3 people or 4 people and they'll spend a few months and we'll kind of just get the ecosystem where it needs to go. Then when we actually got into the process of interviewing people, it was just brutal. We received a lot of resumes and we had to give everybody a technical test and there was a bit of an issue. And then we eventually came down to 2 teams, an Argentine team and a Polish team, and we couldn't choose between them. We were like, we like these guys so much. So I just threw in the towel and I said, hell, we'll just hire everybody. So the Growth and Teak team is now at 7 people. It's led by a wonderful Irish guy named Alan McSherry. Basically, they all came on board full-time-ish around November, December. They kind of trickled in because we had to wait for them to finish other obligations and projects. And the whole team reached full strength about mid-January. So managing expectations, the first thing that we assigned them to do was just to understand the Ethereum protocol. So the people we had hired are all very solid computer science people. They have good backgrounds like master's degrees, and they've been developers for quite some time. So you can give them documentation, you can give them white papers, you can give them pretty complicated tasks to do, and they can do these things and do them well and securely. But the challenge is that this team, while they had experience with distributed systems, they didn't have experience in the cryptocurrency space. So the first challenge for us with this team was to just kind of bring them up to speed and introduce them to all of this exotic and new technology. And that's what they're currently working on. So I gave each of them a pretty dense set of white papers and reading materials and some courses, including the smart contract Udemy course and so forth, just to get their feet wet. And they spent basically 2 months reading documentation, looking at code, and walking their way through this ecosystem. And they've learned a huge amount in a very short period of time. Now that is through, they're about 50% of the way, 60% of the way through the Ethereum protocol. And they've implemented as they go code, and they've implemented about 15-20% of the protocol in Scala. The goal will be to implement everything into Scala, and there's kind of like a pedagogical phase where it kind of works, but it's not a production client. And then the next stage will be to transform that effort into a secure production enterprise-grade client written in 100% new code in Scala. So I'm very impressed with Alan's leadership. I get daily reports. They're using UTrack, Gantt charts and everything. So your standard Scrum-driven development is occurring. The other thing is we just started live stand-ups with the Growth and Deep team. So on the 6th, we broadcasted the first meeting, and every week thereafter, we intend on broadcasting a meeting. And the roadmap, the Gantt charts, all these things will be made public within the next few days or a week or two. It just depends on how long it takes our web devs to get it up and make it pretty and so forth. So one of the reasons why I wanted to get on was just to kind of manage expectations, because when you say you're building a client, that can mean many things. And it's important what people should expect, when they should expect it, and what the purpose of this client is. So let's discuss that. So with respect to the pedagogical phase, that is nearly ended. And this team, the Growth and Deep team, has a pretty deep and detailed understanding of how cryptocurrencies work in general at this point, and a pretty detailed understanding of how Ethereum works. So now they're getting to the point where they're getting into the nitty-gritty. Like they're opening up the EVM, they're looking at each and every opcode, they're trying to really understand this stuff at a level that only people like Gavin Wood or people who've actually built a client would understand it. This process will probably take another 2 months, in my estimation. Maybe a little faster, maybe a little longer. It depends on really a litany of factors and the quality of documentation and other things. But so far the documentation's been pretty good, and the code that they've read has been pretty good. Although we've noticed a few little issues between Geth and parity, which were differences of opinion. But for the most part, the protocol is pretty well fleshed out. So exiting April, then the effort will be saying, okay, let's take this pool of work and transform this pool of work into a beta, something that people can install, they can run on their computer, it'll connect to the test net, and it'll give us basically all the functionality of Ethereum. And then from that, the question is, how do we make it secure and enterprise grade? So how do we take it from something that works to something that works and you can trust with your money? That process will probably take another month to 2 months, depending upon how fast they can move, and a litany of features, as well as how fast the security auditors and other people move. So we will put all the software that we write through security audit. We have a very good firm we work with for other projects called Grim. We may retain them for that, or we may use a different firm. We've also been collaborating lightly with the guys at Rootstock. 2 of our developers are co-located in the same workspace in Buenos Aires. So we do have a chance to talk to Sergio Lerner and so forth. And they've made certainly a lot of really good innovations on their side, like Decor, and they have some overlay protocols for speeding up smart contract computation. And they've also improved the EVM. They're getting like a 5 times speed up over the Ethereum J EVM because of some of the things that they've done. So our hope is to take some of those innovations and have them work their way into the Growth Indeed client as well. So it's kind of like managing expectations. Don't expect anything beta until June, and don't expect anything enterprise grade until maybe a few months thereafter, depending upon the review. But my hope is by the 3rd quarter of this year that we will have a completely independent code, 100% built from the ground up Ethereum Classic client that is in direct support of all the other clients, meaning you can talk to Parity, you can talk to Geth. The other hope is that bundled with it, we'll have an IDE and all the tooling that people have built for Solidity, like Truffle and so forth. Probably pretty easy to do because we're going to use Electron as our wallet. We have a platform called Daedalus, which is built on top of Electron, and we've already built a cryptocurrency wallet with it. And so we're with the way we built Daedalus is it supports multiple currencies. So it'd be pretty simple for us to upgrade that front end and then make it support Ethereum Classic. Furthermore, Electron was built by GitHub for the Atom editor. So it's probably going to be pretty simple for us to get an IDE to work well with that. And so you can have a development environment and also your wallet directly connected to each other. So that's what's coming down the pipe for Growth Indeed.
Nice, good stuff. So yeah, that was a really good overall update on what's going on. And also, I think you had something you wanted to mention about monetary policy as well.
Yeah, so it's important to keep in perspective the difference between short-term and long-term. So currently, actually all of the major development work that's meaningful is being done by Splix and the Geth client and the other core developers who are working on Parity and so forth. So they're responsible for the 2 hard forks that have occurred, and they've done phenomenal work. And so what they've done is taken a code base that someone else wrote, and they're keeping it on par with Ethereum and changing it where we deem necessary as a community. So it is unlikely that the Growth Indeed client will be operational prior to the monetary policy being locked down. So it's likely that MP will be set and implemented by the Geth and the Parity clients, and future features are going to have to come from us 3 working together. So this said, we have to really start getting the ball rolling on getting some basic principles down and getting an actual improvement proposal finalized so that we can get consensus around it and get it implemented. My hope would be to get it implemented sometime in March to April, if possible. So I think the community so far has been pretty gung-ho about sticking with proof of work. Second, there's been a lot of discussion about what Ghost needs to do, and if we need to stay with Ghost, upgrade Ghost, replace Ghost. There's a component there because Ghost does have a connection to the monetary policy. The other thing is that there has to be some discussion about basically whether this is going to be the final monetary policy or if we intend on setting a date to tinker with it. For example, if we wanted to do something like install a treasury system. So for our firm, we released a paper last year in Q4 on the Dash treasury system, and we didn't stop researching. We actually kept the thread, and we have another set of documents and requirements and designs coming out in the next week or 2. And this is basically our philosophy of what a treasury system needs to look like. And we've been in discussions with a university in England to inculcate that project there. and develop it over an arc of time, such as 3 to 6 months. So it is interesting if we're going to go with a final monetary policy in the next 2 months and say, that's it, never going to change. We're now like Bitcoin, it's set forever. Or we would do a monetary policy with a hook saying that we have to come back in a year and clean it up and finalize it, with an understanding that we may add a treasury system or not. So our hope is to have something really meaningful out in the next week or so that we can share it. And our hope is to have a monetary policy event in China sometime towards the end of the month. And I think you've been trying to coordinate that. Do you have an update on it?
Yes, so there's a ETC-a-thon that's going on at the end of this month, February 25th, 26th, and 27th, I believe. We'll put a link for that in the description for everyone who wants to check that out. And since we figured all the key players and a lot of people that are very interested in this conversation will be all together for that ETC-a-thon, that would be a good time, since everyone's together, to continue the discussion beyond ETC development and also talk about monetary policy.
Right. Yeah, and that's absolutely necessary, and it has to be done in China because we've already done some events. Avtar and others put on some great events over in Europe, but China is one of the key drivers of our community, and so they need to be represented. I've always believed that. So yeah, monetary policy is kind of a tricky one, but I do agree that we really need to get the ball rolling, and we have to get that stuff set. We won't be able to participate in it from an implementation standpoint because I don't think the Growth and Deep client, again, is going to be available for that. There's too much of a lag on it. But I do have utmost confidence that once it's set, it'll be pretty easy to push and implement in for the Geth and the Parity client. Then, a slightly different topic, but interconnected, is the overall roadmap and like where will the technology of Ethereum Classic go? Like what are we planning on doing? So I really believe in this philosophy called Shuhari, which is like a martial arts notion of like learn, master, and then innovate. So before anybody earns the right to go ahead and say, hey, let's take this existing system, which has had a tremendous amount of critical thinking and trial and error built into it, and let's throw it all away and build something new, they have to prove they know what they're talking about. And just being a founder of it doesn't make me credible because I left the project pretty early on relative to its history. So it was important to me that before, from IOHK's side, we made any proposals at all about where we'd like to take the platform outside of conversation pieces like these are things we could do, that we demonstrate that we have a mastery over the protocol that is only equaled by people on the Ethereum Foundation side. So this is the kind of the first point of the Growth and Deep project, is to say the proof is in the pudding. We've delivered a client. We understand Ethereum at a very elemental and deep level. We have shown our transparency by having weekly stand-ups, a public roadmap, open code, and also when we go through the security audit and all these other things, these things will also be public. So people understand there's nothing up the sleeve. It's, they see the intent. So after that's done, there will be some proposals that come from our side about, for late 2017 and 2018, what can we do with Ethereum Classic to differentiate it from Ethereum and make it a platform and a protocol in its own right that has a kind of perhaps different use cases, or at the very least a different view of computation. Now, we've already started the research and the engagements. We actually have already started collecting a lot of information from just going and talking to great people. I was in Shanghai recently at the Shanghai Winter School, and I had a chance to talk to a lot of different cryptographers about their research in Ethereum, everything from state channels to new consensus concepts. We've had a lot of discussions about basically what can we do to speed up validation or shard the state space. Blockchain partitioning has been a really hot topic that we've been going over. So there's a lot of really novel concepts. And actually what's really cool is that while Ethereum Foundation has been really focused on proof of stake, and frankly, we have too, we have 10 people working on proof of stake every day. So it is cool and intoxicating. It turns out that there's a lot of innovation in the proof of stake, or the proof of work world. For example, there's these proofs of sublinear complexity that Agalos has come up with, which are really neat. It seems a lot easier to implement a secure zero-knowledge checkpointing system with a proof of work system than it would be with a proof of stake system. We have a better notion of how to do sidechains with proof of work than with proof of stake, although I think we can eventually reach parity there. So I think that there needs to be better PR for proof of work. There needs to be certainly some acknowledgement of its downsides. I don't think it's the end-all be-all. Macaulay would be the first to tell people that 5 mining pools control all of the hash power for Bitcoin. And so, if you want 5 people control the state, that's not so good. So there really does need to be some conversations about how we decentralize mining or make it more efficient, but it does seem to be a viable paradigm. And I do think it is something that is compatible with smart contracts in general. But I think there needs to be a broader conversation. Like there's been some great work out of Cornell on trusted hardware, in particular using Intel SGX to do all kinds of things like smart contracts that are private. There's this concept called sealed glass proofs where you can prove you know something and sell it to a person. It's a really novel notion. They also have basically like Augur enabled by trusted hardware. It's called Town Crier. So we're just at the beginning of using these types of frameworks, but they're very well proliferated because every Intel chip has them now. And ARM has equivalent notions with its secure hardware zone. So when you start talking about having every cell phone and every computer have these special modules, you have a very democratic distribution of hardware, and this can become a second layer to assist in removing some trust or to speeding up computation. So I do think there needs to be a more meaningful conversation about where trusted hardware's role is in our technology and what we can do with it. But I am pretty excited about the notion of sticking with mining and perhaps doing something like Bizcoin or twin chains, so maybe a 2-stage protocol. I am also really excited about the notion of innovating on the friending side. I think we would be very stupid as a community if we passed on the opportunity of trying for a treasury, because that's like the ultimate repudiation of the whole notion of centralized funding to a foundation. You say like, okay, well, one model is you have an ICO and you raise all this money. I've done it myself. It's a good model. But on the other hand, the problem with that model, and no one has fully addressed this, is dealing with the centralization of that money. You only have one decider. And if that person's like good and honest and fair and wise, maybe they make great decisions. If they turn out to be like Donald Trump or something like that, your whole ecosystem may go a little crazy for a little bit. So it's important to say that the capital is decentralized, that there's some way that more than one actor can have access to that at some point. And the tech is there for this. It just needs to be properly packaged and vetted and assembled. And it's, as a company, one of our priorities to do very rigorous research on it. So we're going to be presenting that, and our hope is we can get the Ethereum Classic community to get behind it. The last point is about formal verification. This is one of the most boutique and exotic topics in development, and it's not commonly done by most developers. If you go to like a full stack web dev and you say, where's your cock proof for this? They're going to probably look at you pretty weird because it's just not a common notion. But it does occur in academia, especially in PLT when you're talking about functional programming. And it turns out that there's like 20 years of theory that has really advanced things and made the tools a lot better and sped things up a lot. But that theory hasn't worked its way into industry. Now, one of the things that IOHK as a company is extremely focused on is basically how are we going to build a pipeline where we can not only write good functional code and make that work well. It's amazing. We found a way to build a cryptocurrency in Haskell. That was not easy. And we're almost there, and we're like, yay, great. But that's not good enough because Haskell's just Haskell. We want to do formal verification as well. It's because we're like, it's like the Spinal Tap of cryptocurrencies. We have to take it up to 11. So the formal verification component is really an interesting discussion. But then you have to kind of have like an ontology of what's meaningful. What should you verify? What should you talk about? What guarantees should you give? Obviously, there's the crypto, and then there's a lot of discussion about the network stack and consensus. These are 3 low-hanging fruits, and there's already been some great work like VerityCock and so forth. So we're retaining a really, really super good, super specialized firm to come in and help IOHK as a company learn how to do this well. And our hope is that we can take some of those techniques and methods and come June, bring them into the Growth Indeed team and start putting those methods and techniques first into our development practices so that client we produce will be the first formally verified Ethereum Classic client or Ethereum client in general. Second, that we can take those techniques and have them work their way into the smart contract stack, which I think is much more meaningful. The good news in that part is we're not alone. There's actually already been some great papers. Like there was an Idris paper out of Chalmers University, which said, how do we use dependent typing in smart contracts? And it was very well written. Also, Yuichi Hirai is working with the Ethereum Foundation. He's working at verifying the EVM bytecode. So I think there's a lot of great progress that's being made and some good thought that's starting to be put into it. It's kind of scattered. And our hope is over the next 6 months, we can unify all of it and actually figure out how to make it work well and get it into our development pipeline, and then eventually build some tools that as smart contract developers can actually do this. I don't think all smart contracts require formal verification. Honestly, it's probably going to be library level work. So like the stuff that Zeppelin is doing, or if you're going to do a DAO or something like that, that will be the standard in the community. But then your everyday smart contracts will probably continue to use Solidity, which is a good language and there's good tooling for it. So that's what's coming, like an analysis of proof of work and how can we make it more efficient and transparent and fair. The idea of overlaying trusted hardware into the network in some capacity and trying to understand what that does to the network and where we get benefit from it, and if it increases democracy in the system or not. A really deep analysis of decentralized funding, and then finally bringing formal verification both into the client itself as well as the smart contracts that the client runs on it. The research is ongoing, so expect outputs on the second half of this year, and our hope is to take that research from white paper into production sometime in Q1 to Q2 of 2018.
Yeah, so just kind of a overall, to really boil all that down to as simplified as I possibly can, it kind of sounds like you've got all these great puzzle pieces on the table, and now it's just a matter of putting all these awesome puzzle pieces together into something that can really do great things for the community.
Yeah, it's amazing because I didn't honestly think Ethereum Classic was going to survive when I first came on board. It was it started as a protest movement, and it was just like you guys spent 2 years very vigorously defending a particular philosophy, and then because it became inconvenient, you walked away from it. It would remind me of I'm a Ron Paul guy. If Ron Paul woke up one day and said you know what, that war in Iraq was a good idea. It's just, we would be like, what happened to Ron Paul? Where's the Alzheimer's? It's like Bizarro land, right? It's like I went to he'd be having a goatee or something, and it's anti-Spock. So along the same lines, a lot of people felt this way, and at the very least, it was a way for us to say it's not all right. It's not okay. You can't take people's money, create a social contract with them, and then violate that social contract and pretend like you didn't and expect everybody just to take it silently and feel good about it. So then when it became clear to me that the project was going to survive, then we had this terrible problem. And you were in the beginning, so you saw it too, where the community was just all over the place. It was horrendously fractured. We had interesting fellows like Michael Trout and others, and it was a very big challenge of what are we really doing here? Is this just a protest, or are we actually going to try to build something real? And is this thing going to turn into a cryptocurrency that has the right to exist? And being just a copy-paste coin does not have the right to exist. We have to have some intention to go somewhere with this community. So what really got me excited, and what made me pull the trigger and commit the developers and get them in, was that the community did solidify. And this was thanks to your hard work and a lot of other people's hard work. But I saw that there was a very passionate group of people who said, we want to do something cool. And, Ethereum's going in a particular direction, and we're probably not going to go in that direction. And let's go try something else.
I want to stress that I was definitely working on it, but there were a ton of great people that really helped pull a lot of this together.
Yeah, absolutely. And once I saw that, I said, that is so cool. The other thing was that it felt like the early days of Ethereum again. When the early days of Ethereum was we didn't really have a clear roadmap. We kind of had a notion of what we wanted to do. We had a white paper, eventually a yellow paper, but God, there was a lot of question marks and how were we actually going to get this thing deployed? But there was this just amazing community that was so passionate and so excited. And they were all like, wow, this is going to change the whole world. This is so cool. And that gave us the inspiration to work harder and work longer and do crazy things and eventually make those crazy things reality. And so when I started interacting more with the ETC community and seeing these people, I kept getting all these messages of these people who are exactly like the early days of Ethereum. So that was so cool. And I said, okay, I don't know where this is going. I don't know what's going to happen to the price. The DAO hacker can do something crazy. WoW could do something crazy. I don't know. I don't care. I don't care if this cryptocurrency is worthless. We're still going to be here. We're still going to have some fun because the people here are cool. And I like talking to them, and I like hanging out with them, and I could go drinking with them. That's really neat. And it's amazing to see how it just kept going down and down and down and down. We found out the Ethereum Foundation sold 90% of their stake, so maybe that had something to do with it. Anyway, yeah. But it kept going down to 60 million. And I saw Sins and some other people in the channel saying, like, the sky is falling, we're all going to die. And I was like, I don't care. You can go to $1. I would still be here. But then it went back up, and all of a sudden the liquidity went back up, and the community got really inspired. And I think we've reached a plateau of stability for the time being, and that's really encouraging to show that you can have a philosophy and a really chaotic movement, kind of work hard with it and get it structured a bit, and then have a return to normalcy, and all of a sudden have this great template to do some amazing things with. So I'm profoundly excited about the future, and I think Ethereum Classic's best days are ahead of it, and we're going to have a lot of really cool things that come up. I think there's going to be a lot of challenges. There are going to be probably a few scams that are littered in, because every cryptocurrency has that. But Mt. Gox couldn't kill Bitcoin any more than some scam can kill ETC. And we're just going to keep plugging away and chugging away for the next year or two. And our hope is that by the time we're done and we finally hang up the towel, if we ever do, we'll have left something behind that is very significant, and that the community will be completely self-sufficient, and it won't need anybody. It's just going to do its own thing. It's like the honey badger of smart contracts.
Sounds good. So anything else you'd like to touch upon or let the community know? I know this is the first time you've kind of addressed everybody in a little while here, but anything else you want to let everybody know?
Oh, let's see. I do want to apologize for all the people that have reached out to me with projects that they've wanted to work on. I've been tremendously busy with a lot of stuff, and I really do want to have like a detailed discussion about dApp development. It's just we just haven't found the time for that yet. But it is encouraging to see that organically those conversations are happening, and people are doing amazing things. Second, I'd like to thank you and Christian for doing a great podcast and really just killing it with community management. I also like to thank Elaine and Carlos and a whole bunch of other people who have
Blix and Cody Burns as well, and Avtar.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Also all the Chinese guys, Roy and everybody out in the Chinese community.
Yeah, I think I'm having sushi with Eric Gu.
Nice.
On the 19th and cool. In Japan. Also, I'd like to thank you for going out to Japan. That was kind of a trial by fire. How's your Japanese excursion been?
You don't have to thank me for going out to Japan. This is awesome.
Yeah, pretty cool. Have you done a show yet while you've been in Japan, or were all your shows New York based?
No, it just didn't line up properly as far as like timing was weird, and getting up and stuff like that. But I've got something lined up for anybody listening to this right now. A show for Alan McSherry, who's the lead of the Growth and Deek team. He's going to be on. I've got a show lined up for this Friday to have him on and talk about some of the stuff they're working on that you touched upon as well.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. A little bit of backstory about Alan. He's a very senior developer and manager. And actually, you can tell when you watch the stand-up meeting, he just has a wealth of experience, a wonderful guy. Yeah. And, it's funny, when we asked him to be the project manager, the first thing he did, he says, well, I got to fly out and meet everybody. So because we were basing the technology on Scorex, and Scorex was built in Russia, he went to Russia. Then he's planning to go to Poland, and then he's also planning to go at some point to Argentina, and we're probably going to drag him to Malta and also to a smart contract meetup in Athens. And so Alan is married and everything, and he I don't know how his wife feels about it, but he's like living on a plane, meeting all of our people, and trying to make sure that the group dynamics are where they need to be, and that everybody's doing the right job. But
someone mentioned this. Who was the guy from Contact that lived on the plane?
Oh, yeah. I feel like that guy, right? Eventually he died in the space station, though, right?
I don't know. I forgot his name. But he lived on the plane. Also, I like the way you introduced Alan earlier. You said, we've got a really great Irish guy, Alan McSherry.
Alan McSherry, right? You'll love him.
You've got a really great Irish guy.
He's always at the blood alcohol content legal minimum for Ireland. No, I'm just kidding. No, he's a true professional, and he's a very solid engineer, a good Scala developer, and what I really admire the most about him is that he has very reasonable expectations about deadlines. I'm always like a very hard driver. Our Haskell developers will tell you that, where I'm like, why don't we have this yet? Let's see if we can get it this week, and we just keep pushing and pushing, right? But then I try to do that with Alan, and Alan's like, no, it's going to come out on this date. That's when we can do it. And I was like, okay, all right, Alan, that's great. All right, it's like you just really can't
Yeah.
you can't bully the guy into giving you a better deadline. He's just going to do it the way he needs to
Yeah.
do it. But that's the
There's
mark
yeah,
of a very good manager.
yeah,
And
you need a yin and yang to coexist. Yeah.
exactly. The other thing is that when you learn Ethereum, especially when you start dissecting the EVM, you also start learning kind of how smart contracts work at a very high level. So what's really exciting to me is like once the Growth and Deep team is done with the Growth and Deep client, it's not going to require 7 people full time to maintain it. Occasionally there will be like develop sprints to put in forks and things like that. But it is really cool to see what we can do with them for smart contracts. And so I really do like when people send me DApp ideas. It's just unfortunately we don't have the resources at the point to develop them yet. But it would be cool to start doing some dApps on Ethereum Classic, and I think that team is going to be the nexus of that effort on the second half of this year. And almost certainly, as they understand more, they're going to have like 50 ideas of cool products that they want to do, and then we're going to have to kind of tamper them down. And that's why Alan is like the perfect guy to lead them, because if you can say no to me, you can say no to them too.
Right.
But it's been a lot of fun. What's your experience been like? Have you enjoyed being in this community management role? Have you been burned too many times yet, or you still got gusto and passion?
No, there's a pro and con list to everything in life. So there's a ton more pros than there are cons to. So obviously I been burned a couple of times, and I get some hate mail or some hate messages every now and then, but overall everybody's really supportive all the time, and I'm obviously really happy to be a part of whatever in any capacity that I can be of the community, and just do whatever I can for them.
The thing I was most proud of was how organically efficient and well executed the Die Hard fork was. It wasn't like there was some grand planning committee and there was 6 months of process behind it, and then there was the decider who came in and did it. They just came together and said, this is something we need to do. And
yeah, seriously,
they got it done.
Yeah, and I've heard I've spoken to Elaine a couple of times, and she's like, oh, Splix is like a beast, that he's like a coding machine. And so all of them just getting together, and Splix, Elaine, don't panic, and if I'm forgetting anybody, I apologize. It's just they've gotten so much work done just in such an organic way, like you say. And also, I mean, Snaproll's proposal for the monetary policy was completely organic as well. It's not like he has a monetary policy background, but he said he's like a spreadsheet junkie, and he put something together that's really awesome, which is cool.
Right. I actually really like the proposal, and I think it's a good starting point, especially when we go into China with it. And I'm very confident that something like it or it will end up surviving the trial by fire. And if that ends up being our final monetary policy, it's not a bad deal. Monetary policy is one of those things where you could potentially fight about it forever, but once it's set, and you just have to have a community consensus. This is it. We're not going to do anything more. Like Bitcoin is that way. It's like, yes, you probably could dream up of a more fair way of distributing Bitcoins, but damn it, man, it's 21 million. Accept it, deal with it. It is what it is. We just have to get to that stage. From
it's
an investor,
like,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I said this one time. It's almost like the soup Nazi from Seinfeld, and it's like the soup is so damn good, but it's like take it or leave it. No soup for you.
Right. No monetary policy for you.
Right. So that's the monetary policy of Bitcoin, and it looks like ETC as well. It's like, don't ask for the bread, just take the delicious soup and get out of the store. That's it.
Right. It's been a lot of fun though, and it's nice to be thinking about Ethereum stuff again. That's another thing I kind of missed. I didn't realize how much I missed it until I started working with the Growth and Deep team and actually thinking about this at a very deep level. And I was like, wow, there really is a lot of magic here. And I kind of got very bitter and divorced from that magic for about 2 years. And so that's another thing I'm eternally grateful for in this space, is to have an opportunity to be able to contribute in a meaningful way, and actually have a community that's very receptive to it. Even if our ideas don't end up being the ones that win, that's okay, because it means that probably some better ones won. And we all benefit from that. We're all
I think that's the most important point, is the meritocracy aspect that ET has wholeheartedly, and it's just people put forth proposals and ideas and different things, and everything is just completely merit based, which is, I think, how you end up with a really great platform.
Right. Oh, I guess one last thing we should mention. So there was a lot of discussion about the picture with me and Vitalik in Shanghai.
Yeah,
That was fun.
I guess I saw it a different way than, not too many people had an issue with it at all. I'd say a very small percentage, but I guess I just saw it in a completely different light than the people who didn't like that picture.
Right.
I even posted one time in the Ethereum Reddit about a friendly competition between chains. I just never saw it as such like a bloodbath, in my opinion. But everybody's entitled to see it how they want
I
to.
feel like I should tell people the backstory behind the picture, so they have some context.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah. So anyway, I was in the Shanghai Winter School, and I flew out some of my employees as well, because we have some cryptographers who work for us in Japan that came out, and we were all chatting in the hallway, and then I see Vitalik come on in. He walks right by me, and I was like, wow, Vitalik's here. Okay, I didn't know that. That's cool. And I hadn't talked to Vitalik in person since June of 2014. So it's been a little bit of time. I've chatted with him over Skype, and we've exchanged some emails, and we've had some Reddit conversations, which are known, but never in person. So like, it's a multi-day conference. And so I expect that maybe with coffee or something, we'll run into each other again. And we didn't. And like, a day goes by, and another day goes by, another day. And for some reason, we just never got around to talking to each other. So we had no conversation. So right before the end of the conference, Hongsheng comes up to me and he says, Charles, would you like to be on a panel on the conference? I wasn't a speaker. I was just attending the conference. And I said, oh, okay, well, who's on the panel? It's, just be you and John Katz and a few other people. I was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I go to the panel, and Vitalik is sitting right there on the other side.
I like how he threw in Vitalik with the few other people.
Yeah, the few other people.
Sentence, right? Great. As opposed to leading,
I was sitting next to Andrew Miller, and Vitalik was on the other side with Loy Lu and a few others. And anyway, John immediately says, "We're not going to talk about Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. Not going to get into this at all." And they just like ask privacy questions for a whole hour. And everybody in the audience, every time they ask questions, like, it's not an Ethereum question, right? And they're like, no, it's not. It's like, okay. That's
funny.
So at the end of the whole panel, I got up to leave. Vitalik started leading, and so then I said, Vitalik, and he says, and he turns around, and I walk up to him, and he looks at me, and I look at him, and there's like this silence that seems like it's for a whole minute, and all the cryptographers are just like frozen. Like, what are they going to say to each other? And I go over and I hug him, and I said, you want to take a picture? He said, sure. So then I held up my fingers. I said peace, and we got a picture. And that's the story behind the picture. And he went out his way.
It's a better, more productive world that way, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is. And
maybe
it's important to point out that none of this stuff is personal. It's like I was on Skype like months ago in the Bitcoin Business Association channel. Somebody's like, "Oh, the only reason you're in Ethereum Classic is just to get revenge on Ethereum." And I'm like, guys, it's good business. Train up a team of people that know how smart contracts work and the stack works. It doesn't cost a lot of money to train them up. And then once you have an enterprise grade client, you can do a lot of stuff with that. We're in the business of building cryptocurrencies and eventually smart contracts. So that's a good investment for me. The fact that I can do that for a community that's really awesome and do it on a live network and get that data and benefit them is just icing on the cake. Yeah. So it was a rare case of where something happens and it allows you to do something that's beneficial for other people, but also good for your business. It's just like you choose some open source technology for your stack that just so happens to be useful for somebody else. You're going to make it better for everybody, and it's good for everybody.
Yeah.
So there's nothing personal there, and frankly, I think that if we do our job right, we're actually going to provide a tremendous benefit to Ethereum overall, principally because they're 100% committed to moving to proof of stake. I don't think that's going to change. And there's going to be some minority of people who really just don't want to do that. And if Ethereum Classic stays on proof of work, then there's a place to go where the tools are the same, the experience is the same, the philosophy may be somewhat compatible with what they believe. And so it may actually make it easier for the Ethereum Foundation to transition to proof of stake. And that's going to be one of their biggest challenges, because this is not just repricing gas or something. This is a massive philosophical shift on monetary policy, on the operation security of the network. and also the long-term scalability of the network. And it's not something that you treat lightly. So you need a lot of people on board for that, more than just the DAO hack. So.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah. Well, I mean, thanks for coming on, Charles, and I'm glad we got to give the community kind of an update on what's going on behind the scenes, as well as maybe some stuff on the front lines that maybe they didn't know about or couldn't keep up with. There's just so much going on in the community, so it's sometimes tough to keep up with all the news.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, and have some fun tomorrow with Alan McSherry.
All right. Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers.